Hi, Adam. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be on the opening panel and delighted to welcome my esteemed panel members who will be introducing themselves one by one. Seong Tong or ST, in short, do you want to introduce yourself quickly, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm ST, calling from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I lead TipTop, a digital venture incubated under PETRONAS Downstream that provides a digital solution to manage your retail fuel station options. Although the topic's on upstream, but I think the organ would be nice to have a downstream and from someone previously from a totally different industry, as my background is in venture capital investments across Asia. And being a former startup entrepreneur, proud to happy to share more during our panel conversation. And thanks again for having me.
Thanks so much, ST. John Hudson, my esteemed colleague from Shell.
Thanks, Sundeep. My name is John Hudson with Shell. Good morning from Houston. My role is improving our subsurface staff capabilities in data and digital and focusing in the upstream development function for Shell. Happy to be part of the panel today.
Perfect. Very pleased to have you here as well, John. Ashild, do you want to introduce yourself quickly, please?
I'd be happy to, Sundeep. My name is Hanne Larsen. I head up the Subsurface Excellence and Digital function in Equinor, where I have been working for ages, to put it like that. Very happy to be here today and to be allowed to join the panel.
Thanks so much. We're very pleased to have you here, Ashild. And last but not least, Prashant, can I request you to introduce yourself?
Sure, Sundeep. Thank you very much. And really, just like others as well, very pleased to be here and very looking forward to inspiring exchange with this fantastic panel we've got. Prashant Soni, my name is. I'm part of Aker BP and working in a department called Concept Development and Technologies, where my role is related to digital strategies and working with the digital roadmaps for how we will develop. How we will come up with new concepts and how we will develop projects. Yep. Back to you, Sundeep.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to hear your views. I think we have decades of valuable experience on this panel. Just to reiterate the topic of the panel, this panel is the emergence of a digital workforce and how will it transform the upstream sector, but also the oil and gas sector, right? So looking forward to everyone's views here, and maybe let me start with Ashild, ladies first. So would you be able to share a little bit of your experience, on how do you see the emergence of a digital workforce in the oil and gas sector, and how is it transforming your business in particular?
Sure, I'd be happy to share some of the steps that we've gone through as part of this leg, I would say, of our digital journey. I think we've had for a few years a digital roadmap that we worked with 6 programs, and the ones that are perhaps most relevant for me in my role have been now subsurface analytics, well delivery, and also data-driven operations. But from where I'm sitting, at the core of it is really people, data, and technology. And we have 3 enablers that cut across our programs, which are increasing data utilization, of course, trying to expand our ecosystem, as well as build digital competencies. And some of the successes that we have seen actually in Equinor includes our digital academy that has delivered more than 130,000 learning sessions in an attempt to build that digital workforce that we see that we need. And also our cloud-based data platform, Omnia, that makes data available independent of what source it came from or where in our value chain it was originally created. So I think it's fair to say that even though a lot of us probably feel that there's a lot more we could be doing with digital, technology is starting to transform the way that we operate. And at the center of it all is Omnia, our data platform. But I think we feel that the real potential is unlocked when we combine our people, our data, and our change capability to transform the way we work. And a couple of the examples I would like to highlight are related to new industrial applications like our digital twin and digital field worker that we have, so that now field workers can actually access operational data anywhere and anytime using their tablets. And that enables them to make better and faster decisions at the yard during commission and in operations as well. And in fact, we're seeing a big cash flow impact of some of these solutions, because at one of our major fields on the NCS, Johan Sverdrup, they actually gave a 1 month earlier startup and a faster production ramp up, resulting, of course, in significant cash flow impact. And in the subsurface area, a key item for us has been the subsurface data lake that we have set up, which allows for more seamless collaboration. And we see that things that used to take hours, we can now do in seconds, like combining well, seismic, and drilling data, for instance. So we're on our way, but I think a key learning for me, and hopefully something that other panelists will recognize as well, is that it's not really the technology that is the challenge. It is the leadership, the culture, the capabilities that will really be the differentiator and will be part of our ability to scale these solutions and take out the full potential.
Perfect. Wow. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. Yeah, I mean, stuff that used to take hours, if you can do it do it in seconds, sounds fantastic. I know I heard from Prashant earlier that you were doing quite a bit in digital transformation at Aker BP. Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I think it's in the same line as what Ashild just mentioned. I also want to start with that when we talk about digitalization or digital transformation, it's not about technology, right? It's about people. It's about people using these technologies. So that comes like changing the mindset, bringing your people up to a level where they can understand. They can also understand what we are talking about when it's digital, and also prepare them for the future in a way. So it's the ability to change and also at the same time to take out the value. So that has been the focus for us as well. We have believed for last 5 to 6 years in Aker BP, like digital transformation or digitalization is a game changer for us. The whole digital space, be it seismic, well, inspection, maintenance, repair, or even the energy transition or energy efficiency part, like how we harvest, how we utilize, how we analyze data on an industrial scale, this will definitely change the business model fundamentally, and it has changed for us. And the thing is, what I wanted to mention or say here is rather than running directly for technology, for artificial intelligence, or talking about analytics, we should rather invest and focus in fundamentals. Very much like Ashild mentioned, we also worked a lot and focused a lot and invested a lot on things like data, like access to data, data quality, governance, the mobility, and bringing the organization up to speed, like where before we even talked about the adoption to analytics and so on. So it's very similar to Equinor here. But some things I wanted to mention, like I mentioned to you previously as well, Sundeep, about like how we have done it or what we are doing exactly, like sort of checklist from our side for transformation. What we've done is where we are, or if we can say that it, how do you say, like we are on a journey like any other company as well when it comes to digital transformation. But the main point for us, or the governing thing for us, was like top management's attention here, like that they were in it, they really believed in, they also did, and they also had the drive for that. And then when we talked about like the roadmap or where we want to go, it was very clear for us, like we need to make sure that what is the desired end state looks like. We have an agreement on that, we understood on that, we had a clear plan towards that, and also understanding like setting the clear requirements for all the products we will make it through, like make sure that these things are understood. But above all, we should understand like how these digital products interact with people and work processes, because at the end of the day we wanted to change the way of working, right? We want to work with the people, so try to understand all the factors which are impacting these processes we are trying to transform, establishing a clear implementing strategy, that's understanding the methodology for how we will control the progress and how you measure the value extraction here. So these were like some of the checklists we have worked on for when it comes to digital transformation our side. But last but not least, I want to mention we have also had one good saying. Our CEO always says that the bad news travels fast. So it's important to develop a plan for how to deal with failures as well. So important thing is when it comes to transformation for whatever we have achieved so far in Aker BP is the vertical communication, which was really, really strong. And at the same time, a horizontal collaboration, which was paramount so far. But again, jumping directly to analytics or technologies, it was much better and wiser as well to invest in fundamentals. Back to you, Sundeep.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing your valuable experience, Prashant. Moving a little bit now, to try and get a different flavor of the energy industry, maybe from downstream. ST, I heard earlier from you, that Petronas is doing quite a bit, to streamline operations of your retail stations, maintenance processes, and leveraging data. Would be really interested, to hear a little bit about that. Sounds fascinating to me.
Sure. So in TipTop, we have two key offerings, which is really the TipTop Enterprise app, and it's built on autonomous facility devices such as IoT, smart cameras. It's kind of a one-stop solution to help manage retail station operations, right? Ensuring it's clean, it's stocked up, it's safe, and everything works all the time, right? And do it is really, I mean, all this manual work, data silos, legacy applications. As you can imagine, right, we've got 1,060 stations spread out nationwide, and they are not even, so it's company owned, dealer operated, so it's not even technically your staff, right? So we kind of decided, great, okay, let's have one app, which then you can have a single source of truth, right? Because if you have applications everywhere, it all goes wonky, right? And I think what just now the opening session Joe mentioned, what you don't measure, you can't manage, right? So it's exactly that. So in our app, we timestamp everything, right? Every process, and happy to say even one of our success was really reducing some down parts or some downtime for some parts for about 32 to 4 hours, which is fairly significant, right? And how we approach things really about from the right, always go attacking their pain points, their user journey, making it ultimately their life simpler and better, right? So everything we do, we have that motto: how do we make user better? Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks so much, ST. I had another quick question for you. So, you mentioned TipTop is a venture. So does it mean that other oil and gas companies can also engage your team? If they are interested in the solution you're working on, or is it something only for Petronas?
Yeah. So yes, definitely. I think the whole idea was that if it can scratch our itch, it definitely can also scratch others and bring value to other oil and gas companies out there. Because from our research, globally, all those that have downstream retail fuel stations, they all face generally the same issues, right? Data visibility, asset management, maintenance, compliance, safety, right? And a very distributed network, right, with multiple vendors as well. So when you put all this together, it's fairly different from an upstream angle where generally is although it's a big plant, but it's generally in one location. It's all your staff, right? So for sure we are happy to for other oil and gas companies as well.
Perfect. Excellent. Thanks so much, ST. Moving gears a bit, getting to the topic on developing digital maturity assessments, and especially constructing innovation teams around existing staff and resources. And this is particularly close to my heart as I lead innovation for the industrial sectors. I'd really love to hear your experience. And I think Prashant, you mentioned about Aker BP's Eureka X digitalization lab before. Would be great if you can share your experience on how you sort of resourced, and how did you develop the existing staff and resources, and motivate them, and lead them to innovating and creating digital solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I can start talking about that. It's been, I think, in the last 5 to 6 years, we have heard many times of digitalization, definitely about digital transformation, that it will radically will change us. It will change our partners, alliances, and but we know that it won't be kind of it wouldn't be complete without changing the processes, changing the way we work within the organization. And when we talk about innovation, digital innovation, then it's also important that these digital tools we are talking about will change not just the business model, but it will also drive up efficiency, right? And if you're not driving up efficiency, it's just a technical improvement, like we call it. Same time, we have also experienced within oil and gas. Now, it's not just Aker BP, but in general, and I think you will touch upon later, Sundeep, is that what we are struggling with is we have the immense amount of data, but we also struggling with one thing is the people, like talent management, attracting new people, retaining people, and getting the real kind of mix of digital savvy and also the technical people, right? And that we have also seen from our side. In Aker BP, we have the pocket of excellences. Really, some people are really, really good in what they do, both the technical domain side and also with the digital side as well. But we lacked as well this kind of really this good combo, this combination. And at the same time, you also wanted to do the innovation in-house, right? Because it should be closer to the business so that it would be easier. Like you start with a problem, you find a solution, and then you bring it back as implementing. So working together, and that's how you started doing the Eureka X program within Aker BP. I think it's most of the companies around the globe in oil and gas, they all have some sort of innovation program. So it's nothing kind of new or unique, but the thinking is similar. Very much like when we started, like we put some people out of their comfort zone, out of their daily work, in a space, in a place, literally outside of the building, outside of their job, and they were dedicated 100% to the innovation part. The same procedure like many others start, like you start with the problem, you have some sort of sprints there, you develop your MVPs, you do the test, you do the product afterwards, you make a product, and then ultimately if the product really shows the value, you implement it, and later on you scale it. So it's a very simple, simplistic kind of, in the technology companies, they do similar way we did as well within the organization. That's one point of it, right? And the Eureka. But your question was also related to how we are bringing like how we are lifting the full organization up, right? Because we have seen as well, this is like how it is, like digitalization is in one way or another way, it's creating gaps in skills, what we see, and it's also straining the capabilities of leadership, as Ashild also mentioned. That's what it is today. But when you look to the future projects we are developing within our organization, we have more and more focus on remote operations. We have focus on unmanned platforms. We want to do as much as possible onshore. We have already moved one control room for one of our platform, Ivarosen, to land for in 2019. And now we are thinking for the new projects as well that we would like to have the control rooms on land. And that will really require different sorts of skills. Like this interaction between onshore, offshore will be different as well. We talked about digital twin a lot, right? And digital twins, what we are looking for that, they are not just giving a diagnosis, but they should also predict the inspection. They should predict when the maintenance is needed, and they should probably pay for the repair as well when it's needed. So all this combination, this immense amount of data, when we talk about doing everything remote, that will also require different sorts of thinking. It's not just helping like you have the domain knowledge and also at the same time the digital know-how, then it's not enough. you probably need to think about new ways of working. It's like failing fast skills, rapid prototyping, interactive feedback, team-based decisions, task-centered sprints, and so on. So combination of these things, what we put into Eureka as well. And what once people are like in 6 months, when they are done, they will bring back all these learnings about how to do sprints, thinking about prototyping, and they become the ambassador. So they bring it back, this culture, and then we are transforming the whole organization by that. Like you are kind of moving, I wouldn't call the word recycling, but like you are bringing people in Eureka and bringing back again, so that they take this way of working as well with them. So that has been the focus, and for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been quite successful as well to bringing these ambassadors back to the organization and lifting the full organization up.
Wow, fascinating. Thanks so much, Prashant. It sounded a little bit like the Apple Skunk Works, famous Skunk Works under Steve Jobs to me. When you mentioned moving resources and
Yeah,
moving them out of
there
the
was one
building and
fantastic
stuff.
thing. Just want to mention, Sundeep, I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you here. There's one thing, like you use a lot like agile or like sprints in Eureka. And now in the concept development side as well, outside of Eureka, we are using actually sprint is to come up with new concepts as well. Really, the thinking from Eureka, you don't need to take everything into Eureka. You can just do it within the organization as well. And that's a big change of way of working. And these fail fast skills, in a way, I think it's a lot to do with the Eureka culture as well, which is coming back. These ambassadors are coming back and utilizing it and kind of spreading the good news.
Indeed.
Now I stop.
Indeed. No, it was really very insightful to me. Maybe would be interesting to hear also from ST on a slightly different topic, but very interconnected. So on business efficiency, on improving business efficiency using data management and integration, and especially delivering value at speed. Are you able to share something, ST, and then after ST I'll move over to Ashild. I understand you have been doing quite a bit in PETRONAS and Ashild in Equinor. Would be really interesting to hear your views.
Sure. So in PETRONAS, we want to do things at pace and at scale, right? And we realize we just can't rely on a single division of innovation or a group of data scientists and so forth, right? So we thought, okay, how do we democratize it? Yeah. So we after created what we call an innovation engine program, which is really to democratize innovation in a large scale, right? So what we did was we actually partnered with Amazon AWS, right? And learn their tools, because we looked at, okay, what are the really innovative companies out there? And Amazon was one of them, right? They churn out a lot of, from the Kindles to the AWS, using the exact method and methodology from them, and we propagate across the company. And working from their methodology of working backwards, so they have this PRFAQ method. And even the president and the executive leadership team goes through that, right? So it was quite fun to see them actually call customers, validating them and so forth, and we are propagating it across. So thereafter, then from there we go through almost like kind of a Shark Tank concept, and new ideas gets funded and go through their MVP cycle. So innovation is one. Then secondly is data, right? We hear a lot about data. So we also have this citizen analytics program where anyone across the company now can do their own dashboard, can do their own analytics, pulling from the data from our data hub, right? And again, that you free up the time of our data scientists to do the hard stuff, right? And so really try and move it into a data-driven company. Yeah, and we're seeing quite a lot of success now, but we're not stopping there. So our next thing that we're soon going to launch is actually a citizen developer program, right? So where anyone can develop their apps, and not just wait for the digital division to figure it out, right? So again, really trying to spread things out as fast as we can at pace and at scale to the company. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a massive cultural shift.
It is.
Have you faced any have you faced any challenges? Because I can imagine, telling traditional folks, okay, you can go and develop your own apps. How did they take it?
So apps not yet, but I mean, of course, we start. We got to start baby steps, right? And I think that's where in Petronas initially we thought, okay, how do we, encourage new ways of working, right? Because so what happened was that we have a tag, the motto now, right? Our vision of a mission statement now is like being a progressive energy and solutions partner, right, to enrich lives. So we are no longer just limited to few, right? So with that mindset, that we say, okay, can we be a solutions partner like TipTop or new energies? That pushes the employees to say, look at new boundaries, right? You no longer can be where you were last time, and you realize that to do that you need new ways of working. You need a lot of change management and communications, right? And also new blood, right? And that's where they hired people like me, who is completely not in oil and gas industry, to come in from a very startup culture, right? Like you mentioned, some of the sprints, in startup we are always at the forefront of at least the business of technology, right? So we used to managing risk and rewards kind of thing, and really try and push that boundary. So how do we bring in new blood, and then from there teach us like how things are run, right? Your, like I said, daily scrums. And in fact, when I was hired in and built my team, we didn't even work at our corporate twin towers. We were working space first, right? So that used to startup culture, and then only we moved to the corporate towers and try to so-called infuse being a good bacteria, I would say, right? Trying to infuse that culture into the corporate. But of course, naturally, as any bacteria, you have the antibodies to fight back, right? But slowly and being persistent, and of course with the top management support as well, we are able to do so. So much so now we actually have a venture builder division. So we call it, engine number 2. So we have engine number 1, which is the traditional business, and engine number 2 is like, what else can we do? And hence the innovation engine that I talked about earlier is also complementing that. Yeah.
Right, and thanks for the bacteria and antibody comment. So yeah, I think COVID is right, still in the midst of, and yeah, so it's good reminder. Moving quickly to Ashild. I know that Equinor has been doing quite a bit also, in this space, and would love to hear your views, on how are you using data and data management and integration, to move at speed?
No, happy to share a little bit of that. We do many of the same things on innovation, but to me, it's about also finding the right balance, between sort of the things you do to perform today and the things that you do to enable transformation required for tomorrow. And instead of repeating all the other things that have been said here, which we also do, I wanted to perhaps shed a bit of light on some of the learnings and challenges that I've had as part of this journey, because both innovation and the importance of data needs to be recognized both top down and bottom up for anything to happen. So you really have to anchor it with senior management so that they understand the need for innovation, the need for good data management, and also can allow the organization time to work with that and to develop the skills. So I think it's really important to link both innovation and the accountability for data and data quality back to the business where it's owned, and to have initiatives that actually address business needs and are possible to scale across. Because what I have experienced sometimes is that we have good ideas in teams, but they are too small to really make a huge difference, even though there's a lot of ownership. Or we have things that we could scale, but it stops because of data quality. So we have to do a big cleanup operation first. So that is why the data management part and the fundament that you referred to, Prashant, is so important, both when it comes to digital innovation and just transformation in general. I think I'll leave it with that, Sundeep, and go back to you.
Right. Thanks, Ashild. Yeah, was insightful indeed. So a related then, related topic, and maybe John, I'll move over to you. Is on then how augmenting the digital framework in this fast changing world, right? So there's so many things changing. Commodity prices are always volatile. They've been especially crazy in the last few years. ESG conformance, new emerging energy sources. Can you speak a little bit about what you and your team are doing? How are you managing this, and how are you leveraging and augmenting a digital framework in this fast changing world? John, I don't know if are you still with us? If not, let me I don't know, Ashild, are you able to share something? I know you've been also doing quite a bit in this space.
Yeah, of course, it is a very interesting time that we live in, because the pace of change is so enormous, and we see commodity prices fluctuating at a really high rate. Just look at the energy prices for oil and gas these days. And of course, as you say, ESG requirements and adherence will be stricter regulated, and the energy mix will shift. So the question is then, how does that impact the technology choices or the changes that are required to the fundament? And we've discussed that quite a bit internally. And while there is a real importance in getting to a framework that is flexible and able to change, it doesn't, in my book at least, mean that you have to change everything that you have. Because when I look at it, at least, there are some changes required to IT strategy, to fundamentals, to operations, but much of the information and operation technology we use is as a foundation is often the same. It's the system integration, really, from our perspective, that is different. So we can use the same automation and information systems regardless of whether we're producing oil and gas or whether we're producing wind. And the machine learning algorithms used to optimize that production and those operations are used across our various plants. We just train them on different data sets. But that's just one sort of aspect of this, I guess. But I see that you, John, seem to be unfrozen and back in the swing of things. Is that correct?
Do we have you back, John?
Yes, I just got back, so I'm sorry if you asked me a question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, no. So Ashild graciously stepped in and and shared her experience, and would be keen to. I know Shell is doing also a lot in this space, right? So just wanted to hear a little bit on what your team is doing, on augmenting digital framework in this fast changing world, right? With so many moving pieces, commodity prices, ESG,
Sure.
new emerging energy sources. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought Ashild actually started out with a very nice framework in the very first response that she had, and certainly some of the themes that she talked about there, resonate, I think, with all of us, and appreciate the comments that ST and Prashant had made as well. So, yeah, the challenge is that we're facing such a huge change right in the industry right now to try to bring the changes that we're envisioning forward and try to accelerate the energy transition that's coming. And I think Joe really spoke to that well in the presentation on the keynote. It's going to be such a fundamental change, not only in what we're doing, but also in the way we're doing it. So we're seeing the transformation within the companies now, and I think the other comments that the panel has had have spoken to that. Increases in kind of personal digital skills, in kind of the ways of working. I think some of the highlights about what is going to have to change further is that we're going to have to be working together much more closely with partners. So it's going to be a much more federated style of working as we go forward. Of course, we have long-term partnerships with other companies already, but what we're realizing now is that we have to know a lot more about each other's business to really make those partnerships work and to make them work over time. We have to be a lot more patient about how quickly partnerships return the value. So sometimes some of these problems are much more challenging, and so we have to be exposing each other to kind of what really makes sense for us from a business model. We have to make sure that we're collaborating in such a way that both sides, both the supplier and the customer, are going to benefit from that long term, and that sometimes that even turns around, that a supplier can become a customer. So that's certainly not a hierarchical thing like it had been traditionally in the oil and gas industry. So it had been the case where service companies would listen to operators, but sometimes we didn't do it the other way nearly as much as what we needed to. And of course, we're finding that some of the challenges, we don't have all the capabilities even within the large companies now. So if we look to things like, what does a hydrogen trap look like, for example? What are the rock fluids of hydrogen, or even CO2? We of course dealt with CO2 for a long time, but putting it in reservoirs where we didn't see appreciable amounts before, and trying to make that commercial in a very distributed way in the economy, which is what it's going to take in the future. Some of those challenges are going to require federation and sharing of data that we haven't seen before. So I think the standardization, Sundeep, that you pointed to is going to be an important aspect there. And we're seeing some more collaboration, even very broadly within the industry. I think the Open Subsurface Data Universe initiative is an example there, where what was just an idea maybe 3 or 4 years ago even is becoming very practical now. We're seeing sharing of data and more interoperability between applications and service, really setting up a situation where we can collaborate much more deeply than what we were doing just a few years ago.
If I may add to that, John, I think that those are very interesting reflections. What remains a huge challenge, the way I see it at least, is to be able to manage this transition to a profitable renewables portfolio fast enough, and to not underestimate what I think is an enormous cultural shift inherent in moving from what up until now has been very profitable production of oil and gas to delivering green energy and services to customers, but with lower margins and changed ways of consuming energy. So we shouldn't underestimate that part of it either.
That's exactly right, and that's a big part of the challenge. So that kind of makes me reflect on some of the things that Joe was saying also in the keynote, is that it not only takes partnership, it takes patience. It also takes us working with society in a way that probably we haven't had to do before in earlier decades in the oil industry. So I think you really put your finger on the important point there.
Perfect. Thanks so much, John and Ashild. I think that's a perfect segue into one of the things that we wanted to discuss on this panel, and that is about talent and talent attraction. how looking at making oil and gas and the energy industry, is that, would that continue to be a sustainable career choice, for the generation X and Z and the future generations. And maybe let me move to ST, because ST, you have a background outside oil and gas, and it was interesting for me to hear Petronas hiring an out of the box profile. Can you share a little bit of what has your experience been? Why was it, or why do you think Petronas chose to go outside, and what attracted you to the industry?
Right. So I think what attracted me again, as people from the, at least the digital natives or startup guys, are really challengers, right? And actually, if you see the oil and gas industry these days, it's actually an enormous challenge. Yeah. And actually, but where they want to get to, right? New energy, and new ways of working. That's really where you say, okay, can we do a change in a massive scale? And that's something that, at pace and at scale, is something that startup guys like myself love to do, right? It is a challenge, but how is, that's the question, right? So of course we have to do in agile, in a very, what you call, minimum viable product mode, and very customer centric. Those are things that you need to infuse from within the corporate itself, because traditionally in oil and gas, this is how I want it to be done. You just deliver it, right? But now it's like, if things are uncertain, then of course you need to do really agile iteration mode, like what Prashant or Ashild has mentioned. But what's also important, I think, it's when I come in, definitely there's culture shock as well, right? And maybe if I can broad base or generalize it, digital people, or at least the startup world, they see purpose, right? What you need to do is really, a purpose needs to be there, right? Of course, I think you've heard of stories, or it's very common that people take pay cut to join a startup, but really is the purpose, right? They believe in that purpose, and I think we need to push forward on that, right? As an oil and gas company. Secondly, is really the rhythm, and also the bureaucracy that's inherent within a traditional oil and gas company. In a startup world where we meet a certain target, we just keep going on, right? For the next target, and we do not ask for approvals, right? We just do first and ask later. But in oil and gas, I guess you hit a milestone, you got to go for presentations, get more budget, go finance, then procurement, and and then the whole gym bang, of approvals before you can move to the next step, right? So then you always have this start, thing, which breaks the rhythm, and something that I'm still struggling with, to be honest. And lastly, maybe, if I may, also a mindset, right? That to switch to do products instead of projects. More often than not, I realize in oil and gas, it's very much waterfall. This is the projects I want to do. I hit my KPI. Okay, next I move, right? But I think in the startup world is, hey, I want to build a product that there is a roadmap, that there is continuity, that I can build something that I love, right? Really building up a baby out of it, and having that ownership, right? To create something that's we call it a minimal lovable product instead of a viable product, right? And really, that's very different from let's say, consultant type mindset, where I'm done with this project, okay, move me next. So just give you a few of some things that we haven't got it right, I have to admit, but we're trying to get there. And I'm sure my colleagues here too.
Thanks so much, ST. I mean, yeah, some of the things you mentioned are pains I feel as well. So very close, very close to my heart. How do you move from projects to actually products, right? So yeah, and also in products, typically in an energy company, a product might seem to be more of a fluid or a liquid or an oil product, and how do you also talk about services and digital products, right? And even those are products. So really fascinating. Thanks so much, ST. Maybe moving quickly to Ashild. I mean, you've led a massive organization. At least this people I speak to, the youngsters today, they would rather prefer joining a startup, and not even Google now or Microsoft. And then how do we continue to attract the right top talent to the industry? And what has your experience been so far? And how do you see the future?
No, we are experiencing that we're still able to attract talent, but we see that there are several challenges to our attractiveness. And let's just be honest about it. That people are left with the impression that we're a dirty industry, that the idea that oil and gas is perhaps at the sunset stage more, along with, for some, a kind of skewed gender balance as well in the industry. So if we are to continue to attract talent, I think we need to change the narrative a bit and try to convey that oil and gas is going to be part of the energy mix also for the decades to come. And if you become part of our industry, you can actually impact it from the inside. You can be part of producing oil and gas with a low carbon footprint. You can also be part of maximizing the revenue from that part of our value chain to build new green businesses. And I just think that that's an amazing thing to be a part of. And another thing that I think uh, young talent should be interested in is the opportunity to be part of reshaping the industry, because we must become leaner. We must find new innovative ways of addressing challenges and ways of working, and even new technological advances. So in the face of all of those challenges that we have, there is an abundance of opportunities as well to shape and to contribute as we move towards net zero. And to me, at least, that being part of that journey just feels incredibly exciting and motivating. And I think that is something that we have to get across to the talent base. That's my 2 cents, Sundeep.
Thanks so much,
You mind
Ashild. I don't
I
know.
add some,
Go ahead,
you
Prashant.
mind I add something on this here? I think Ashild has a really brilliant point here. From Aker BP's point of view as well, like we do have people coming in, so it's not like completely kind of people are just saying no to oil and gas in a way. But the narrative is a bit different as well from our side. When we talk, I mean, like it's very clear that we are an oil and gas company, but when we talk about like who we are, so we talk about like we are an entrepreneur company. Working in oil and gas. So this company could actually produce anything. There is a will to succeed. There is a dedication in team and self, and then there is a will to do something different, right? That's a kind of narrative that you start with. But it's not just about talent kind of attraction. It's also about retention as well, right? When it comes to attraction, if people are not working in oil and gas, we have this strategic partnership with a number of other companies, right? Given one of our sister company, Cognite, and that works mainly with the digital, mainly with the data platform, mainly with the data science and that part. And there you get a number of people, like really, there are people coming and they really want to work there as well. So you need to find balance as well, like best company for the job as well. You don't need to hire perhaps the data scientists in-house. You can probably work with other partners as well. And the second part, as I mentioned, like it's not just about attraction, it's also about retention. How you could retain people, right? You can definitely help them in many ways, the working environment and so on, but you can also lift everybody in certain way, right? Because you know that the domain knowledge is definitely going to be extremely important, but the future will require multi-competence employees, right? So you need to help them as well lift a bit more. Like perhaps people don't need to sit and write algorithm, but they need to understand what the algorithm can do for them. So the focus should be, just wanted to mention, like focus should be not just on attraction, but also on retention as well. And if we can't attract, then perhaps we need to collaborate and with others, those they attract, and change the narrative. I
Indeed.
really like the what Ashild said. So.
Sandeep, could I also jump in on this one? This is
Go
an
ahead,
important
John. Yeah.
topic, I think. And Prashant, I really appreciate what you're saying there. And I certainly recognize that you guys have developed a really nice innovation culture, kind of like a startup mentality there. And that's really great. I think kind of going back to what Ashild was saying also, I think it's important to recognize the context, that we're in. Since 2014, the main top 50 service companies in the oil and gas sector and operators have lost about 40% of their technical professional staff, right? And it's a remarkable decrease. And at the same time, we're looking at fewer younger staff coming into the industry. You know, the enrollments and particularly the functions that I look at, which is geosciences and petroleum engineering, are we're seeing fewer people coming in the industry now. We're seeing a pretty high fraction of the overall staff, 55 and plus. So I think it's important that we do change the messaging around, as Ashild was saying. We still have a tremendous amount of challenge, and actually that challenge is getting more and more interesting all the time. So whereas in the past we spent a lot of time looking for data and qualifying data and doing things that actually aren't all that interesting, the jobs of the future are going to be incredibly interesting. We're going to have much more AI assistance in interacting with AI in terms of doing basic things that we've been doing for decades. So interpretation is radically shifting right now. We're day by day interacting with AI capabilities that are helping us do our job and really taking away a lot of the things that were routine and mundane and making it a very interesting opportunity to work with partners from all over the world, and in every sector. So could be cloud-like companies that we're working with. It could be smaller companies that are niche players in recharging, or a whole host of. And I think that we really have to grab on to the vision that Ashild was pointing to. That if we're going to see the changes that our society needs, where is that going to happen? It's not going to happen by just selling off things. It's going to be moving whole industries. It's going to be taking some of the heavy industries like transport and marine transport and steel making and helping them to get to a net zero future. So a lot of that is going to happen by the skills that are actually in the industry. So we do have to change the narrative around, like Ashild was saying, and help people to see that there's a future for them here. There's a place where you can take your domain knowledge, like Prashant was pointing to, and apply your same skills in a different way as we move to the future together.
Thanks so much, John. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So in just to close that out. So in Shell we have reorganized a little bit. One of our major businesses around sectors and decarbonization. So exactly, so aviation, and how do we look at decarbonizing the aviation industry, the marine industry, the construction industry, and so on. Yeah, and it's no easy feat by any means, right? So we do recognize that. That we have to work in partnerships, right? So in partnerships with governments, with regulators, with suppliers, with partners, right? And only then the challenge can be addressed. Perfect. It's been a fascinating discussion. I'm conscious of time. We are at the end now. I've learned a lot. I hope the audience has also taken away valuable takeaways from this panel. Thank you so much. Maybe before we close, I just want to ask each of you, if there was like one takeaway, you would want the audience to, take away from the panel, what would that be? And maybe I start with ST.
I think if you want to change, especially in digital, I think you need to make a deliberate plan, right, to like attract and retain talents, right? And if it's attracting, really, to have that courage to act and open up new ways of working, right? And also be very customer focused, right? Create a culture of customer focus. I think that's where you unlock a lot of innovations from there.
Perfect. And to you, John?
Yeah, I think I would just hammer back on that last point about our role is really changing, whether you're in a leadership role or a technical role. It's really about understanding the demand for skills and helping people connect where they're currently at to the future for them.
Perfect. And moving on to Ashild.
No, for me, it has to be about transformation and the reminder that if you want to transform, you need to take your organization with you. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be about people, about capabilities, and about creating that learning culture that drives the change. So don't forget the people in your focus on technology, is my request.
Indeed. And last but not least, Prashant.
Yeah, I mean, like we have also touched upon that both on individual, how we can lift the organization in terms of ways of working, competence, and so on. But what I would like to say, and everybody to, I mean, like my 2 cents in a way, like we need to incorporate these fail fast skills as well in the curriculum when we talk about learning something new, like rapid prototyping, interactive feedback, team-based decisions, and task-centered sprints. That was it from my side.
Perfect. Right. So we have still a couple of minutes that we had kept aside for questions from the audience, and maybe let me request the organizers, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer them now. All right, I don't see any questions, so I hope or I think probably our messages were very clear, and our panelists have really been very insightful. Yeah, so then thank you so much. I've learned a lot. You take care, stay safe, and hopefully we meet each other soon.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thanks
Thank you
everyone
very
for
much.
joining.